How are you? I'm your subscriber, and I came to know about your channel only 2 weeks ago. I like your stories very much, and I'm very fond of Jeanette. I sleep every night listening to your stories. Many people do not believe in these things, but as Muslims we know they are mentioned in the Quran, so they exist, and I'm fascinated by them. I wanted to share a personal story with you, which happened to me 8 months ago. That's why I cannot share my name. I've been in Saudi Arabia for the past year, but for the last 1.5 years I haven't worked. I've just been staying in a room I booked 1.5 years ago, and I'd paid 5 months' rent in advance. The person I gave the rent to is an Arab. Alongside my room there's a plant store, but apart from that there's nothing here. No houses, nothing, just the plant store. To the left of my room, there's the house of a very wealthy Arab. That's the only house in the area besides my room and the plant store. When I first moved in, everything was fine for about a month. But after that, I began having strange dreams. At first, I didn't think much of them. They were like those fallen dreams, where you wake up right before you hit the ground. But in my dream, it felt like someone was coming towards me to hug me, and I'd wake up right before it happened. I thought maybe it was because of the way I was sleeping. But as the second month passed, the dreams continued. I called my mother, and she told me to keep the Quran in my room and recite Ayatul Kursi. But the dreams kept coming. Living alone in such an isolated place made everything even more frightening. The plant store would close at 8 p.m., and after that, I'd be completely alone in this desert-like area. One day, something really strange happened. I came back to my room at around 11 p.m. As soon as I closed the door behind me, there was a knock. I thought it might be someone from the plant store, but when I opened the door, no one was there. It scared me, but I convinced myself that it might have been a prank. The Arabs here are known for their jokes. But the next night, the fear grew worse. There's a window in my room that looks out onto a sandy area, which I had covered with a tarp to keep out mosquitoes and sand during storms. Suddenly, the tarp fell. Now, I had secured it tightly, and it had never fallen before, even in strong winds. But there was no wind that night. The next day, the tarp fell again, as if someone had pulled it. There was no one around. Another odd thing started happening. The window in my washroom would be open when I hadn't touched it. It's a sturdy window, and even strong winds can't open it. One night, at around 3 a.m., I went to the washroom and saw a light flash past the window. It wasn't the kind of light from a flashlight. It was different, and it moved so quickly. I started reciting Ayatul Kursi and tried to calm myself. But that night, I couldn't sleep. After this incident, things got worse. Objects in my room started falling. A water bottle, cups, and even things on the kitchen sink would just topple over. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but the fear was growing. The dreams also intensified. In one dream, a man in a shroud held my hand and asked me to save him. Imagine living alone in such a deserted place with no one around and having these nightmares and experiences. One night, the dream shook me so much that I woke up drenched in sweat. It was 4 a.m., and I didn't have anyone to turn to. I called a friend, but he was asleep, and my family was far away. Things continued like this for a month. The man in the shroud appeared in my dreams regularly, asking me to save him. I told my brother about it, and he said it was because I didn't pray enough, though I perform all my prayers. I begged my family to send me money so I could move out, but they didn't understand the urgency. I didn't want to stay there, but I was waiting for a visa to Europe. One day, something terrifying happened. I was on the phone, and there's a small slab behind my bed. Suddenly, I felt like someone was behind me. I turned around, and there he was, the man from my dreams, sitting on the slab. His face was burned and horrifying. I dropped the phone and ran out of the room. I stayed outside for 2 hours, too scared to go back in and grab my phone. When I finally gathered the courage to return, I called a friend and told him what happened. He advised me to speak to a scholar. I also reached out to my uncle, who lives about 120 kilometers away, and told him everything. He asked me to sit down and trust him. My uncle came to visit, and we dug up a spot near the room where there was a small gutter-like area covered with sand. After digging, we found a body. My uncle immediately called the police, suspecting the dead body might have been the reason for all the strange occurrences. After that, the police came regularly for a month to investigate.